Here we go.
You're tuning in to Will Love Listen. Now listen.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing very, very well.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I have like back-to-back interviews today. Should not have booked everything back to back. So sorry about that.
No, you're totally okay. Life happens. I totally get it.
But I blame it on the retrograde. I don't know if you're
Oh my
into this.
gosh. I didn't know that are we having a Mercury retrograde right now?
Yeah, it just started like a few days ago. Yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of
Oh.
sense.
Yes.
I'm gonna blame everything bad going on on that. 'Cause that makes sense.
It does. It does. What's your zodiac sign, by the way?
I'm a Taurus sun, Leo moon, Capricorn rising.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
So Pisces sun, Sag rising, Gemini moon.
Oh, very cool. Very, very fun.
My chart's very broken up though, because I did it. I interviewed an astrologer recently, and excluding my rising, all of my planets are grouped into three different signs. So
Oh,
I have,
really?
yeah, I have three in Pisces, three in Gemini, three in Capricorn.
Oh, very, very cool.
Yeah.
I love myself Gemini energy. Like I get along, my boyfriend's a Gemini, my favorite family member is a Gemini. I get along with
Oh,
that energy very
nice.
well. Yeah.
Nice. So I get along with Tauruses, really. I feel like the earth signs I really gel with.
I think we're just a cool group. Like we're just chill. Like, if
Yeah.
if you get Earth, you're like, all right, I can't be like pretentious about that. Like it is what it is. So that's nice.
So I want to talk about your book, and I do want to talk about your backstory because I find it so interesting how like you blew up on social media, and now you have this book, The Ruins Beneath Us. Um, but before I like dive into the book, I do want to know about like your early life and ultimately how your life was growing up, and ultimately what led to you wanting to become a writer.
Yeah, that's a great question. So
Thank you.
I'm actually born and raised originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. I would describe my childhood self as like a little Hermione Granger. I was very bossy, very know-it-all, but also very driven and very determined. And I decided that I wanted to be an author when I was 12 years old. I have to credit my elementary school sixth grade teacher. She sort of planted that seed. And as a kid, I would say I was definitely like Hermione in that I was pretty awkward and like didn't have a ton of friends. And so I was sort of that stereotypical kid that you would see sitting alone on the playground just reading a book. And that was my escapism. And so I think that was something that from a very young age I thought, oh, that would be just the dream if I could make that happen. But it wasn't until I got older and got more social media and marketing savvy that I realized like, oh, wait, I actually could make this a legitimate career if I sort of come at it from both angles of social media marketing and also honing my writing craft.
That was smart. That was smart because it's like you already knew how you would need to market yourself in order to sell a book, really. It's like you manifested that.
I definitely am a big believer in manifestation. You'll find me every day with my journal writing down my goals and plans. I have journals going back to 12 and 13 and 14 where I'd write down in present tense like I am publishing a book. I am going to be a best-selling author, that kind of stuff. So this has been something I've been hustling, plotting, scheming since I was a little kid, and it's been very surreal to finally have those dreams come to fruition and come true.
And you grew up in Mormon territory.
Yes, I did. And I was really Mormon, I'm not gonna lie. I went to BYU. I actually served a Mormon mission. And actually one of the themes that comes out in this book, and in I would say sort of all of my writing, is about personal discernment and personal empowerment. And I think growing up in the community that I did, there were a lot of voices telling me that I couldn't do things because of my gender, or X, Y, and Z. And I think that it's been very healing to be able to tell stories about young women that are in similar positions where they're sort of being told what they can and cannot do, and they might have strict authority figures in their lives. But this book and sort of my life journey, I think there's been a lot of learning and growth about learning to trust your own authority and your own intuition.
Oh, that's so interesting. I feel like I've interviewed a lot of people that like have grew up in the Mormon church recently. I'm sure you watched like Housewives of Salt Lake City. I interviewed Heather Gay and Brittany, and then David Archuleta just put out his book, Devout, about like growing up Mormon and the struggles he's had. So I spoke to him recently as well. Um,
That's so funny. He's actually my second cousin. That tells you how small Utah is.
Really? Get
Calls it
out.
small lake city. Yeah. But honestly, he's always been a big role model of mine, someone that I look up to. First, as a performer who was LDS, navigating that space of someone in the same faith, and then since transitioning out of the LDS faith, he's become very outspoken, particularly about the gay community. And the interaction between the Mormon church and that community and
Yeah.
how fraught and tense it's been. So I definitely admire him a lot, and he's, I would say, someone that I look to as a pillar of how to navigate a public career and be very true to your own voice, even with that kind of an upbringing.
Yeah, yeah, and he just launched his book. That's so funny. So two
I'm
cousins with
excited to read
back-to-back books, right?
it. Yeah.
That's Utah's a small world. You're all related. That's kind of cool, though.
Small Lake City, it's a real thing.
So, which kind of has me curious, where do you stand with the church? Because they all had their Brittany David, all have their own different stance and their story. Um, what's yours?
It's interesting. I think spirituality is something that's so personal and it's such an evolving thing that I think can change with a person as they grow and as they are exposed to more viewpoints and that kind of thing. So I would say that I will always treasure and value the fact that like my ancestors are Mormon. I was raised Mormon. That's my culture. It's who I am. So I don't think that I'll ever be able to fully divorce that identity from
Yeah.
myself. But I do think that my own worldview and my own spirituality is definitely developing and changing.
Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. And I kind of relate to that in a way because like I grew up Catholic, but a Catholic isn't it's similar in the sense of it's not probably the most accepting religion. So like I feel you there. You know what I mean? Like I obviously still celebrate all the holidays. I'm like very spiritual, but also there's a part of me that's also still religious. So I think I get what you mean.
Yeah, there's actually a moment in this book where one of the characters says something akin to like kneeling in a church doesn't make you a good person. That a person's goodness and their morality is really so much more complex than black and white or the binary of being in or out of a different faith. And so I
Exactly.
like that you can relate to that complexity because it is something that's difficult to navigate as you get older and have to make decisions for yourself about who to trust or what churches to belong to or not belong to and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think for like forever, really, up until recently, everything was so black and white. Like people always felt pressured to like be one thing or the other thing or believe one thing or believe this way. And I feel like you mentioned, it's not so one way or the other.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I do really love that Mormonism is having such a moment. Like I love watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That's been one of my favorite shows
Yeah.
to like binge. And so I think it's been fun because it's opened up a conversation where there's not that many Mormons, but it's made it more exciting that people, like you are curious about it or want to ask.
Yeah, it's so mainstream now.
Yeah, it's really, really hitting the mainstream. It's kind of, I would say, exciting as someone from Utah. I feel like it's my people getting the representation. It's great.
Yeah, right. So you grew up in Utah. You actually studied political science at BYU before you moved to New York City. Did you want to have at one point, given what you studied, were you thinking about a different career entirely or no?
Yeah, I actually started going to publishing conferences with the intent of becoming an author when I was like 14. And the advice that I got very early on was that it wasn't really going to be a lucrative career possibility for me. And so I always thought I was going to have to do the quote unquote more serious path and do law school, So I figured that
Oh.
was going to be my track in life.
Yeah.
And I was actually working for a candidate for governor in Utah when the pandemic hit. And obviously everything shut down, school, my employment, all that kind of stuff. And like a lot of people, I got onto TikTok, and that was right when there was really a big moment of BookTok emerging. And so I was very fortunate to sort of get in on the ground floor of BookTok. And once I started to see some of the opportunities and possibilities of pursuing that path, I realized like, oh, I can still hold on to my political science training, put it in my back pocket, but this is my dream, and I might have a window to actually pursue my dream of storytelling.
That's so interesting because you were determined from the beginning.
Yeah, no, this I kind of joke that like it's taken probably 16, 17 years of me to finally fulfill my childhood dream, but I played a very, very long game.
Yeah,
Because
you did. Go ahead.
honestly, from the beginning of when I started to emerge on TikTok, I realized that I probably could publish a book, but I wanted to really take my time and hone my craft and get better and get my storytelling, as possibly as good as it could possibly be. And so I'm actually grateful that it's taken me now 5 or 6 years since then to finally be putting something out into the world.
Yeah, a lot of people give up. So that's what I find so interesting. And like even like when I started my career working in radio, like I feel like people are so driven, and then when they start coming into resistance, they just give up and go into something entirely different. So like I give you kudos because like you were determined.
Thank you. It's an interesting psychological thing writing a book because as you say, there are so many people that would say, "Oh, I have a great idea," or "I would love to go do this someday." But the challenge that I found is that every time you're sitting down, you're writing, and then you're looking back at what you wrote and thinking like, "Oh, this is not good," because your first draft is never going to be good. And so I think that to your point, it's very difficult to push through. It takes a lot of mental endurance to get through that harrowing of a task when you have that voice in the back of your head the whole time that's like, oh, this is not good enough. You're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so you currently reside in the city?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. So was that going from West Coast to East Coast, was that a transition in and of itself?
I'm not gonna lie, there was definitely a culture shock when I got out of here. Even like styling, wearing makeup and not wearing makeup. I would just say the little things shocked me coming to the East Coast. But I will say for New York, I had always grown up with the impression that New Yorkers are so tough and calloused and mean. And my impression, as I think most people that transplant here, has been the exact opposite. The people are tough, but they're very kind. And, I've seen so much goodness in New York that I just really did not expect. I thought it was going to be a lot harsher culturally. And it is a little caustic at first, but I do think that there's a goodness to the people here.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know what you mean exactly. I mean, well, I'm partial too because I grew up here. Uh, um, so the book, when did you originally start working on it, and how long did it take for you to finish? And with that, did it go through various, edits and variations?
Yeah, so I signed a contract with my publisher, which is Disney Hyperion, a little over, oh, it's probably about a year or so ago. It was in December, about a year ago. And from that point, I had about 3 months to draft the first book. And then I had about between, I think around 9 months-ish to edit with their editing team. And so it was quite a quick turnaround process, like both in the drafting and definitely in the editing and revising. It was a really, really quick process. But I think it was good in some ways because I think if I had been approaching publishing on my own, I might have, been more of a perfectionist and sat on it even longer. So I'm grateful that I was able to sign that contract and come into it in sort of an untraditional way.
And what made them like want to sign you? Was it because of initially the following that you had built on social media?
Yeah, I actually, during the pandemic, I actually made this TikTok series on my phone, like a
Yeah.
silent film, short form series of just like little videos that were like telling imagined stories about Harry Potter characters. And it was this very low budget, rudimentary thing, but it was became a very effective tool for me to work on my storytelling. And so I ended up, they would be like little 1 minute long little vignettes, just kind of short scenes. And we ended up putting out somewhere in the ballpark of like 2 hours of content, by the end of the project. And
Wow.
so I think I was able to get trained very well through this experience. And so when Disney reached out to me, they said, "Hey, we're actually reaching out, number one, because of your following, but number two, because we've seen this series that you've done. And we can tell just from what you're doing in your basement on your cell phone that you do have the ability to tell stories. Do you think that you could like expand that into a novel?"
I love that. Because people think getting discovered on social media, you have to be one of these obnoxious shock value streamers, which I can't stand. But in your case, you got discovered because like the social media things that you were doing were a lot more cerebral and like intellectual. There was more of like an art to it, obviously. And I like that that's what led to the book.
Yeah, I think you raised such a valid point. I think that for so many people, there's a lot of ego and identity with their social media platforms.
Very much so, yeah.
And I think that the reason that I was able to see success is that I was telling stories that, to your point, are a little bit more intellectual. Like something that I've had in the back of my head really since I started doing content seriously 5, 6 years ago is that as a young woman, if you make all of your content very identity and ego centered, how long of a runway do you have? How
Good
much
point.
time can you keep making that same kind of content? When does that road end? And so from the very beginning, I wanted to make a name for myself, not just for, being a cute, nice person, but for having something to say, and having some kind of vision of how I want to bring my stories to life.
I love that because you could easily, I mean, you're very pretty. You could easily be like an influencer that's like hawking skincare products or something. Which no hate to them because like I've gotten skincare endorsements and like products to write about too for the magazine. I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying like you could be one of those, but like instead you've like published a real book with a backstory to it. Um, and not a lot of people are kind of like doing what you're doing. So I think that's great.
The nice thing about a book is that it's a very slow burning piece of content. As you know, if you make a TikTok video, you could spend 10 hours on it and post it, and it might do very well for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Whereas a book, you put the effort in and it's going to outlive me. This book is now permanent and it's going to be in the American canon of literature. And that's a very satisfying feeling as someone that operates in the world where I'm making these very quick videos and very quick content that's getting consumed and expiring very, fast.
Without like giving too much of the book away, could you give us kind of an overview of what it entails?
Yes. So this book is about an 18-year-old elven girl named Lyria. And Lyria grows up in this world where magic and elves are both outlawed in the human kingdom of Verdane. But Lyria is an elf and she has magic. And so she grows up in total isolation because of her mom until the day that she sees a stranger getting attacked in the forest. And she decides to risk everything and intervene to save his life. And little does she know that stranger was actually the human prince. So it sets her on a very long and exciting journey. She gets pulled into the royal castle. She becomes the royal apothecary. And as you can imagine, there's some twists and turns and some cool ancient secrets that get uncovered.
Oh, nice, nice. Was this inspired by anything like personally in a way, and then you decided to like twist it into like a story arc?
Definitely. I, when I was young, growing up, as we've touched on, in a very conservative area, in a very conservative faith, I went through that process that we sort of described of unlearning some things that I had been taught about the world and having to make difficult decisions to develop a new set of values for myself. And I think that Lyria is like that as a character. She's grown up in total isolation, a lot very innocent, very naive, and she gets swept onto this journey that takes her into this like much bigger, wider world. And I can really relate to that. As someone that I grew up in Salt Lake City, I kind of always thought I would live there for my whole life. And now I'm living in New York, and I feel like I'm in these rooms and situations that I never would have imagined myself being in. And that's exactly like Lyria's journey.
Did you write this book with the intention for it to be a series?
Definitely, yeah. So we were signed on originally to a two-book contract. It's definitely going to be a duology. But I love these characters, so we'll have to see where things might go in the future.
Nice, nice. So you're very creative minded. So like when you start working on like a book which has like multiple parts to it, do you also get ahead of yourself and start thinking about what's the next duology or trilogy or what have you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I also love when authors are able to plant Easter eggs really early on and then follow up on them later in their career. And so there's definitely a few things that I've tucked away in this story that I would like to circle back on. But yeah.
Nice, nice. So you're doing a bunch of dates for the book. Do you want to tell everyone where you're going to be?
Yeah, I'm going to 7 events in 6 cities over the next week, but I'm kicking things off on March 3rd at Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey, which is super appropriate, I think, because the majority of this book was actually written in New Jersey. So I feel it is very
Oh, nice, nice,
yeah.
nice. That's awesome. So, and the other dates are all throughout the country, right? East Coast and West Coast?
Yeah, after New Jersey, I'll be heading to Orlando, then Chicago, then Salt Lake City, then California, and then back to New York to do our like New York City event, I believe on the 8th of March.
I love that, your first stop on the book tour is in New Jersey, and I love that Jersey is a big part of the book. So, how Jersey do you get in this book? Tell us everything.
Yeah, it's so, it's funny because the day that I originally got the email from Disney Publishing that they were reaching out to me about doing this project, I woke up, I was in Manasquan, New Jersey, and my boyfriend and his mom were on the beach, like down the street. And I was so jazzed. Well, first I thought it was maybe a prank, but then I like Googled the names. I'm like, okay, no, I don't think this is a prank. I was so jazzed. I got out of bed barefoot and I ran down the street in New Jersey, ran down the beach barefoot. And I'm like screaming for my boyfriend. So that was like a very, very core memory that the inception of the book happened in New Jersey. And I did a lot of very late nights in Hohokus, New Jersey, when I was celebrating Thanksgiving with my boyfriend's family. That was right when I was on the edge of my deadlines. And so I would be eating food with them, hanging out with them, and then all night I would be writing through the night, like doing my revisions. So definitely I have a lot of core memories of this book in New Jersey.
Yeah, it seems like you worked on a majority of it there.
Yeah, yeah, kind of crazy. As someone from Utah, to be honest, I would have always said I never would have seen myself in New Jersey. I just didn't know. I didn't know how great the state is.
Yeah.
But there's so much variety. Like, for example, there was a day, I think probably right as I was about to turn in my second draft, like the first round of revisions, where I was super stressed. And so I went to Altair State Park in New Jersey. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Literally took my laptop and like sat in the woods, like editing this book to be very immersive in the fantasy, whimsical wood of it all.
That's so, and your boyfriend, if he's in, that's Bergen County. I live in Bergen County. That's
Oh,
so funny.
no way.
Yeah.
We'll talk about small world.
That,
Honestly, I never would have thought how great it is, but there's a lot of whimsy in Bergen County, a lot of really beautiful, Tudor style homes. I've been very impressed.
yeah, yeah. There are, so that's so funny. You're familiar with Bergen, obviously.
Yeah, but been there a few times. It's funny also coming from Utah, when I'm hanging out like in New Jersey or the East Coast, just going through the suburbs, I feel like I'm in movies because so many movies get filmed in like the New Jersey suburbs. Like Bergen County looks to me so icon, almost like Halloween Town compared to Utah and our very boring architecture that we have out there.
Yeah, they've been filming more stuff here, and now we're getting that big Netflix campus. So I imagine there'll be more things filmed here as that's built out.
Yeah, I actually was an extra in Happy Gilmore 2, filmed in New Jersey last
Oh,
year just for
really?
fun. Yeah, because Netflix does so many things. They'll put out kind of public casting calls, and since I'm here in New York, I'm like, might as well.
Why not, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's so cool. I've
totally.
done that like a few times too, because it's like, why not? You get paid if you have nothing to do. Like, it's fun, like an experience.
Totally. So, so fun. Like, what a memorable day. And you would not get that in Salt Lake City.
Did you meet anyone on the cast? Because I had interviewed Kim Whitley, who was in that movie as well.
Oh, how cool. It was funny. I actually spent the whole day with Bad Bunny, but I didn't know who he was.
Get
He
out.
was dressed. I don't know anything about golf, okay? But
Yeah.
he was dressed what I thought is like a waiter. Like I think it's like a cat. I don't know. He wears like
Like a
almost like a
caddy, like a
tuxedo.
golf caddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of hanging out with like Adam and like all the other golfers. And I truly thought like, oh, he must be a golf professional or he must be a waiter. I didn't know. He didn't say anything the whole day. So it's been very funny. I've since gotten way into his music. I loved his Super Bowl performance. And so I just look back and I'm kicking myself like, Tosh, you should
Oh
have
my,
said something. You're with him all day. Didn't say a word.
imagine being that close to Bad Bunny, but never actually thinking to try to get content or videos or photo with him.
No, and I feel dumb. So major regret for that. Honestly, I almost ruined the scene that he does with Adam in the movie. He like takes I think someone takes a shot. I think he does, and then he burps in Adam's face. Adam Sandler. I'm saying Adam like I know him. Adam Sandler's face. And I in this giant group of extras, I like snorted so loud and like broke the silence, almost
Yeah.
ruined the take. I was so embarrassed. So that was probably the end of my acting career, my one and only day on the set of Happy Gilmore.
That's funny though. That's funny. Who knows? I mean, maybe you're meant to cross paths with him again. You'll see, right?
And I'll apologize. I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't know who you were that day we hung out on a golf course in New Jersey.
Um, so your story is so interesting. I was reading about how you're also an advocate for human rights.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm as we mentioned, I studied political science in college,
Yeah.
and then as a young woman, I got very involved with the Miss America organization. And at Miss America, you're encouraged to spend a lot of time working on a service project. And I did a couple of things, over the years as a teenager. And as I got older and older, I kind of started thinking, like, okay, what do I actually think is a real problem in our society? If I could actually fix or address anything, what would it be? And I zoomed in on immigration reform, and particularly protections for refugees. And so that became my social impact initiative as Miss Utah. So I worked on that full time as a volunteer for a year, traveling across the state and speaking to people about what it means to be a refugee and that kind of thing. And that's actually, I would say, a theme that really informs my writing in this book is, themes of being able to migrate or not, and othering and fascism and all those kind of things.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Kudos too, because I feel like, especially in today's climate, people are very apprehensive to speak out about anything that might even be semi-controversial or especially concerning like immigration and asylum.
Definitely. I think we live in such a quickly moving world with so much rapid fire information. I think it's more rare that you find people that are willing to sit with a concept for a long time and really deep dive or whatever it is. And so I do appreciate that about people in the book world. I think that there's a lot of readers who enjoy deeply ruminating on world issues or issues of philosophy. So I'm glad that you can get more of like an honest chance if people read a book, to really sit and try to understand your worldview.
Have you, I'm very intrigued about the fact that you plan for this book to be a multi-part series.
Uh-huh.
Um, have you thought about kind of pitching it into making it like a movie or a TV series of some kind?
I think I'm not allowed to say anything, but we've had some interesting conversations, and I would love that. That would be a dream to see these characters and this story on screen in some form.
What's the probability? I'm sure the fans would love that. So what's the probability or likelihood, would you say?
I would say it completely depends on how well this book sells. So if you'd like to see this book developed, go to the store and buy a copy. I'd love to see that. So fingers crossed. I hope that this story resonates with people the way that I want it to. I hope that they love these characters as much as I do.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the book. What do you hope that reader's biggest takeaway is?
Ooh. That's a great question. There's a quite a theme that's explored in this book about Lyria's relationship with her own power because she was born with this magical ability. And as someone that when I was a little kid, I had a lot of power under the engine, as they might say. I was a little Hermione Granger. I think that at a young age, I learned to be afraid or embarrassed sometimes of my power or my potential and to dampen that to make other people more comfortable. And I felt a lot of shame sometimes about being so ambitious or wanting to take up space and that kind of thing. And so as people read this book, there's a moment at the very end of the book where Lyria says, or just has this really profound realization, said very simply, that there is nothing wrong with me, that the power and the gifts and the opportunities and the abilities that I've been given, like they were meant to come to me. There's nothing wrong with being powerful. There's nothing wrong with having ambition. There's nothing wrong with dreaming of a really big and beautiful life. There's nothing wrong with Lyria in the same way that if you're a reader or a person that's questioning, because I think that we all do in this society, we question whether we're enough. And I hope that you can take that away, that there's nothing wrong with you. You absolutely are enough the way that you are.
I like that. I like that. Like I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people and ultimately teach them to not dim their light to appease anyone else.
Which
So,
is, I think, so important.
yeah, it's very important. Yeah. So, that's awesome. I can't wait to get a copy of the book. And I'm going to be at your Ridgewood event. I'm looking forward to that. Um, I know you're going to be heavily promoting this book, and in addition to the book, what else is next for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say this book is in the young adult genre, which has been so fun to explore. But I would say something I'm looking forward to in the future is maybe breaking into the adult genre. And I have a couple of things that I've been working on for several years that I've sort of been teasing a little on my social media. So I would say that's the thing I'm most excited to step into in the future.
Do you have plans to pitch? It seems like you have plans to pitch adult book in the near future, right?
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything or give too much away. I will say right now I'm pretty head down all in on book two, the sequel to The Ruins Beneath Us, which is actually I turned in my first draft in 2 weeks.
Oh,
So that's going to
wow.
be right on the heels of this book. I think we're looking at spring of next year is when it's going to come out. So I would say I'm a little in that world for now, but I would love to pitch something coming up in the future.
So a question for those that have, by the time they see this, have already read The Ruins Beneath Us,
Mhm.
and they're really intrigued to see where the storyline goes next.
Uh,
Um, could you drop any hints?
yeah. Well, for those who have read The Ruins Beneath Us, if I were to summarize book one in a word, it would be betrayal. So if I were to summarize book two in a word, it would be vengeance. So I'd say
Mm.
that tone shift is what readers can look forward to the most as the follow-up to everything that went down in book one.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So it seems like there's going to be a fun pivot here.
It's gonna get fun. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Swan Lake, the Swan Lake theme,
The
and
movie,
the transition from like the white swan to the black swan. I
yeah, at the
think
time that was one of my favorite movies. I was
really
really into that when it came out. Yeah.
okay, then you get it. I think Lyria goes for in the transition from her white swan to her black swan moment happens between these two books. So
Okay.
I'm really excited for people to meet the more fully embodied, vengeful Lyria in the next book.
Oh, that's going to be fun because in order to understand the black swan, you
Mhm.
need to get to know the white swan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have both sides. I love it's been so fun to write Lyria's journey from being very innocent and sheltered. You know, it's given me the most blank canvas for her to go out and have these life experiences and the things that we all go through when we're teenagers. You know, your first heartbreak, your first betrayal, your first friend breakup, is so profound.
I know,
All of those
yeah.
things have been very fun to explore.
Yeah, it's so true. I sometimes the friend breakup could hurt as much as a betrayal from an ex, you know?
Absolutely. One of my, I can't say anything too much in detail without giving it away, but one of my favorite arcs to develop in this book is Lyria's relationship with like truly her first good friend that's a girl, which I think is such a profound, important relationship in everyone's life, is their first major friendship. And the fallout, as you said, fallouts of those friendships can be just as heartbreaking and intense.
Yeah, yeah, it's so I trust me, I've lived it, so I'm sure you have too. So
Definitely.
it's true. Some friendship breakups traumatize you more than an ex, especially if it's an ex where there wasn't really chemistry anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a canon event. Everyone needs to go through that traumatic, life-changing friendship breakup.
So this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to get my copy. Everyone, make sure to pick up a copy of The Ruins Beneath Us. And if you live in a city or state where Sasha's going to be in, check her out.
Thank you so much, Will. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you at Ridgewood. Do I need to I should probably get there a little bit early tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I think that the program starts right at 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to be there just a few minutes early, we can grab content or anything.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'll try to get there like 10, at least like 10 minutes early, grab some quick content before it starts. Are you doing a signing or are you doing like a Q&A too? Or
I think both. I think it's a Q&A with Chloe Lukasiak, and then for probably like 45 minutes, and then I think there's a signing afterwards.
okay. All right. Awesome.
I'm very excited.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
so
that's
much. This was
correct.
so great.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
so
you. And
excited.
I'll be like blowing up your notifications, inviting you to collab and all of that.
Oh, sweet. Okay, awesome. I'll keep an eye out for it.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you
Hey, thank
again.
you
Thanks,
so
Will.
much.
Bye.
I
Have
look
a good
forward to
one.
seeing you tomorrow.
You see you tomorrow.